I used to naively believe that raising children was all about passing on love. But at this age, I've come to realize that sometimes raising children is largely about preparing for the day you have to defend yourself against their schemes. That thought lodged itself in my chest like the tip of a needle, dull, but persistent. My daughter-in-law, Chloe, didn't call or text. She simply brought her parents from their small town and moved them directly into what used to be my primary bedroom. She smiled radiantly as if it were a blessing for everyone and stated it as casually as announcing the weather. "Mom, you'll be moving to the guest room. My parents are getting older, and their joints aren't great. The primary bedroom gets better light. It's healthier for them." I just stood there, in the middle of the living room, feeling like a trespasser in a house I had paid for. The afternoon sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, soft and golden, but it did nothing to thaw the chill rising in my chest. I looked at the bedroom that was once my sanctuary. The door was flung open, the room cluttered with unfamiliar suitcases and loud, mismatched sheets. Then my eyes fell on the so-called guest room furniture piled in corners, and my late husband's favorite wicker chair jammed against the wall, teetering as if it were about to collapse. My heart sank, piece by piece. I felt like there was no room for me in this house, neither physically nor emotionally. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Because I knew better. Arguing with someone like Chloe was pointless. As for Daniel, my son, who followed his wife's lead in everything, confronting him would only humiliate him, and that would be counterproductive. That afternoon, while the four of them slept soundly on the sofa, I quietly packed a small suitcase. They probably assumed I was just sulking, that I was going to stay with my sister Rosa for a few days, and that once I calmed down, I'd creep back to resume my role as their unpaid nanny and emergency ATM. How laughable. My name is Grace Monroe. I am 66 years old and a retired high school art teacher. I have spent my life teaching structure, boundaries, and respect. Do they really think I'm that easy to manipulate? They have vastly underestimated me. The first day I walked out of that house, I called my lawyer. What they don't know is that I have already started the process of selling it. My husband passed away from an illness a few years ago. Since then, it's just been Daniel and me. I could have lived alone, in peace and quiet, but I chose to move in with them, thinking I could help out, watch Lucas during the day, cook, keep the house running. I was the one who kept that home afloat. The days were exhausting, but on the surface we kept the peace. Chloe and I could still exchange polite words, but I always knew the harmony was a fragile illusion. Chloe was young, pretty, and sugar-coated her words. But every compliment she offered was laced with a subtle hint of what she could gain. She changed her purse with the season today Gucci, tomorrow Coach. She went to the hair salon more often than the grocery store, and most of the household expenses came from my and Daniel's paychecks. Chloe always acted respectful toward me, but the flicker of disdain in her eyes, barely there but sharp, was like a fine needle poking at my gut. At dinner, she'd smile and say, "Mom, the food is a little salty. We're all about low sodium and low fat now. It's healthier." Seconds later, she'd grab her phone and order Lucas a greasy bucket of fried chicken and fries. Sometimes she would pick up my reading glasses from the arm of the sofa, twirling them in her hand as if they were a fashion relic, and laugh, "Oh my God, these are so dated. I'll take you to buy something more modern one day." But, of course, that promise vanished as soon as it was made. I swallowed it all. I told myself to keep the peace. Daniel was caught in the middle, and I didn't want to make things harder for him. And besides, this 3-bedroom apartment we were living in, we bought it with the savings my husband and I had scraped together for decades. The title? It's in my name, Grace Monroe. When Daniel got married, I understood their financial situation. So, when they asked to move in, I agreed. The house was big enough, and I thought 3 generations living under one roof could be a blessing. We could help each other, share meals, and take care of Lucas together. I never charged them a single penny for rent. Most of the time, I even covered the utility bills with my retirement funds. I truly believed that all of this, my giving, my sacrifices, would earn me their gratitude, their respect. About a month ago, Chloe began talking about her parents in the most casual, almost offhand way. "Grace," she said one night, swirling her soup spoon, "my parents' house is falling apart. It's freezing in the winter, and as damp as a swamp in the summer. She didn't even look up as she added, "And my dad has rheumatism, poor thing. The dampness makes it worse. And the doctor's there? Don't even get me started." Then came the line, soft as cotton but with a heavy implication. I was thinking maybe they could come stay with us for a while. A change of scenery might do them some good. She said it like she was considering redecorating the living room. But a tightness seized my chest. This house only has 3 bedrooms. Daniel and I have one, and Lucas has his. Where did she plan on putting 2 more people? Different routines, clashing habits 3 generations under one roof was already difficult enough. Adding 2 more adults with their own needs and rhythms? We would be tripping over each other daily. I tried to tread carefully. "Chloe, I understand your concern for your parents, I really do. But we're already pretty tight on space. Where would they sleep? They're used to a different lifestyle, and Lucas can be noisy. It might actually be harder for them here." She smiled, a tight little smirk, and dropped her eyes to her plate, chewing as if I hadn't said a word. I thought perhaps she had dropped the idea, and then that day arrived. I had just finished my creative writing class at the community college and stopped by the store for ingredients, intending to make a decent dinner for once. I opened the front door and froze. Piled in the entryway were massive travel bags. From the living room came voices, loud and unfamiliar laughter filling the space with a presence that wasn't mine. I slipped off my shoes and walked in. There, sprawled comfortably on my sofa, were 2 older strangers, sizing up the room as if they were shopping for it. The man had graying hair and weathered skin. The woman wore a faded floral dress and a look of cautious curiosity. It was them, Chloe's parents. I had only met them once, at Daniel's wedding. Chloe swept out of the primary bedroom the moment she heard the door open. Her smile was so wide it looked artificial, like she'd been rehearsing it. She looped her arm through mine, as cheerful as a Christmas hostess. "Gracie, you're home. Come, say hello. My parents are here. It's going to be so much fun having the whole family together under one roof." Then she added, as if it were an afterthought, laced with fake concern, "I've already moved your things to the guest room. I thought I'd let my parents have the primary. They're light sleepers, you know, and the main bedroom is quieter. And that big balcony, all that sun, it'll do them a world of good." This wasn't a conversation, it was a decree. I didn't even look at her. My eyes drifted past her to the now partially closed primary bedroom. I saw the edge of my old dresser, one I'd used for over a decade, now cluttered with unfamiliar trinkets and ornaments. The houseplants I had lovingly cultivated for 5 years, shoved into a corner. In their place, a tacky, lifeless plastic potted monstrosity. My old books, the family photo albums, the keepsakes my husband left behind, all unceremoniously dumped in the small guest room, like junk to be thrown in the attic, out of sight and out of mind. The space reeked of displacement. Everything I held dear had been reduced to clutter, discarded, replaced, forgotten. Daniel stood behind Chloe, his gaze fixed everywhere but on me. He wrung his hands, opened his mouth a couple of times, and finally mumbled, "Mom, Chloe. She meant well." Meant well? What kind of twisted kindness pushes someone out of their own room, treats them like a guest in their own home, and does it all with a sweet smile? The chill I felt ran from the soles of my feet to the crown of my head, as if I'd been doused with ice water. At the same time, a slow, searing anger began to build inside me, like a hot iron pressing into my gut. But I didn't explode. I inhaled slowly. Then I exhaled. "Stay calm, Grace." Arguing with Chloe? She would just turn around and cry to everyone about her mean, uncultured mother-in-law. Fighting with Daniel? He was already completely under her thumb. He wouldn't even raise his voice to defend me. It would only make me look pathetic, and I knew that if I went down that road, this house would become a battlefield. And I would be the only casualty. I pulled my arm from hers, looked Chloe straight in the eye, and said, with all the emotion of a weather report, "Understood." Then I turned and walked into the guest room. It felt like the door had become a wall, a solid, silent division between me and the new owners of this house. Outside, I could hear Chloe and her mother laughing, their voices like drills in my ears, gossiping about curtain colors and hanging chairs for the balcony and whether they should plant herbs out there, as if the room had always been theirs, as if I had never been there. Inside, there was chaos. My clothes were thrown messily across the bed. My husband's favorite books were crushed under a pile of wrinkled fabric, their pages bent at the corners. A picture frame lay face down on the floor, one corner of the glass shattered. In the photo, he and I were young again, standing in the spring sunlight, smiling with a warmth as spontaneous as the first flower of the season. My heart broke just like that glass, but silently. Daniel followed me in. He stood in the doorway like a scolded child, not knowing what to do with his hands. "Mom, please don't get the wrong idea. Chloe didn't mean any harm." His voice was shaky, low, almost apologetic. I didn't look at him. I just said quietly, "You don't have to explain. I understand." Of course, I understood. I saw everything. Chloe's calculated moves, her utter disregard for me, the owner of this house. And Daniel, my son, so cowardly, so passive, so unwilling to stand up for me. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't set a boundary. He didn't say the one sentence I needed to hear. The truly painful thing wasn't being kicked out of my room. It was knowing my own son stood by and let it happen. Something inside me went quiet in that moment. It froze over. It wasn't that I didn't know how to fight, how to stand my ground. I just didn't want to anymore. Because once your heart dies a little, so does the will to fight. The greatest distance in the world isn't death. It's when your own child stands in front of you and can't bring himself to say, "Mom, this is your home." That afternoon, Chloe took her parents out to explore the neighborhood and shop at Costco, beaming as if she'd won the lottery. Daniel didn't say where he was going, but I figured he'd gone to some coffee shop to avoid it all. I closed the door behind me and started packing. I didn't take much, just the essentials. My ID, important documents, some jewelry, and that photo from the broken frame. I wrapped it in a soft towel and tucked it carefully into the bottom of my bag. Clothes, toiletries, I left them. Let them have it all. After all, I had no idea what was coming next. I took out my phone and called my sister, Rosa. "Rosa, can I ask you a favor?" I kept my tone as light as I could manage. "Remember that cleaning service you mentioned a while back? Do you still have their number? I'd like to hire someone reliable for a deep clean at my old place in Oakland. I'm planning on moving back." There was a pause on the other end of the line, just a couple of seconds, before her voice came through, tinged with concern. "Grace, are you all right? Did Chloe say something again? Did you two fight?" "It's nothing major," I said, hedging. "I just want a quieter place for a bit." I said no more. Some things you don't share, not even with your own sister. Airing the family's dirty laundry only creates more worry. After hanging up, I immediately called the cleaning company and booked a full service for the next day. Once that was settled, I zipped up my old suitcase and walked quietly out of the bedroom. As I stepped into the living room, Chloe and her parents burst through the front door, all smiles, laden with bags of fruit and snacks from their shopping trip. Chloe stopped short when she saw me with the suitcase, but only for an instant before flashing her usual fake grin. "Grace? Going on a little trip? Are you staying with Rosa for a bit?" Her voice was sweet, but her eyes gave her away. There was a glimmer of triumph, the kind of smug satisfaction that said, "See? You're leaving, just as I planned." She thought I was sulking, that I needed a few days to cool off, and once I did, I'd sneak back, tail between my legs, ready to serve again. A misunderstanding, a few phony apologies, and everything would be back to the way it was me back in my corner, quiet and obedient. What a joke. I didn't even bother to look at her. I turned to the entryway and started changing my shoes. "Mom, are you really leaving?" Daniel's voice startled me. I hadn't even seen him come in. He rushed toward me, panic flashing across his face, a hand half extended. But Chloe shot him a subtle look, a silent warning. And just like that, he froze, paralyzed. His eyes darted back and forth like a man torn in two. In Chloe's gaze, I saw only contempt and certainty. "Where do you think you'll go? You have no money, no support. You'll come crawling back, and when you do, we'll decide what's left for you." I almost laughed. People like her never stop pushing. You give an inch, and they take the whole mile, until you're at the edge of a cliff with nowhere left to stand. There's no point in arguing with people like that. Logic won't change them. Only reality will. I didn't answer anyone. I didn't respond to her false concern. I opened the door and walked out, leaving just one sentence behind. "I'm going home. You can handle everything from here." And with that, I was gone. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing in Chloe's brittle smile and Daniel's useless panic. Downstairs, the taxi was already waiting. I slid into the back seat and watched the streetlights blur as we pulled away. I didn't feel sad, not even close. What I felt was something strange and light, as if I had finally been freed from a burden I had been carrying for far too long. When your heart has been numb for a long time, there's nothing left to break. There comes a point in life when pain no longer brings tears, only quiet and clarity. This wasn't an escape, it was an awakening. The house I was returning to was in an old neighborhood in West Oakland. It had been part of a housing subsidy back when I was still teaching, and I later bought the deed outright. It wasn't large, 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. But the location was good, the neighborhood was quiet, the neighbors were familiar faces, and most importantly, it was mine. Entirely mine. Sure, no one had lived there for years. The dust was thick, the air stale with a musty dampness. As soon as I opened the door, the smell of old paper and closed windows hit me like a wall. But I didn't mind. It was still the only place I wanted to be. The next day, the cleaning crew arrived on time. They spent the entire afternoon scrubbing every surface, wiping down every corner, and even vacuuming the dust from the windowsills until everything gleamed. I threw open every window in the house, letting in the sunlight and fresh air, chasing away the years of mildew and shadows that had settled in from disuse. The familiar furniture was still there, waiting quietly in its old spots. The styles were dated, the edges worn, but every scratch and dent held a memory of me and my late husband. This was my real home, a place that belonged to me, and no one could ever kick me out of it. No Chloe with her saccharine smiles. No meddling in-laws acting like royalty. No suffocating manipulation disguised as family care. I started putting the room back together, piece by piece. I placed the photo of my husband on the nightstand right where it used to be. The orchid they had discarded, I carefully moved to the sunniest corner of the balcony, and just like that, my life started to feel like my own again. I signed up for an oil painting class at the local community college, something I'd wanted to do for years. I met up with retired friends, morning walks by the lake, coffee dates, conversations about everything and nothing. The air felt fresher, laughter felt genuine, even walking felt easier. At night, I'd make myself a cup of chamomile tea, put on an old movie, or read a few pages from a novel I'd never finished. When I got tired, I'd go to bed early and sleep through the night. The insomnia that had plagued me for years, it vanished. So did the oppressive ache that used to sit on my chest like a stone. During the first few days, Daniel called several times. His voice had the same nervous energy of a schoolboy testing his teacher's patience. "Mom, are you doing okay over there? When do you think you might come back for a visit?" My reply was quiet, but firm as a rock. "I'm fine. This is my home now." He'd push, gently. "But Chloe and we're worried. Are you?" I'd say, because I'm not. Once, twice, 3 times. Eventually, Daniel started to understand. Or maybe Chloe gave him that look. The calls tapered off. Then they became infrequent. Eventually, all that was left were the obligatory holiday texts. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom." Or the occasional, dry, "How's your health?" I didn't mind. I used to think happiness in old age was about seeing your children happy, that their well-being was your reward. But now I knew true happiness is having money in your pocket, peace in your heart, quiet in your ears, and, most importantly, freedom from people who think they own you. Here, in this little house, my life was still, and the stillness had never felt so good. Chloe, however, was clearly not handling the situation well. Her grand plan had counted on my breakdown. It counted on loneliness, inconvenience, the little headaches of daily life piling up until I came running back to them, willing, desperate, ready to serve again. But a month passed. I didn't return. I didn't complain. I didn't ask for anything. Her trap had been sprung with no prey inside. At first, she sent Daniel to try and coax me back, all soft clouds of concern and guilt. I remained firm, unmoved. Then, finally, she broke. She called me herself. From the first word, I heard it that syrupy, cooing tone she used when she was trying to be sweet. "Grace, we're just a little worried, with you living all alone and everything. Lucas asks about you every day." I answered with a weak, non-committal, and nothing more. There was a pause on the other end, and then her tone shifted, just slightly but enough. A little impatience, barely contained, crept in. "Grace, since my parents moved in, the expenses have just shot up. When you were here, you at least helped out. But now, you're just living there by yourself, all peaceful, and meanwhile, we're over here trying to manage everything on our own." There it was. The real reason for the call. Chloe kept up her routine, her voice soft but sharp as ever. "My dad's leg, the doctor says he needs long-term physical therapy. It's not cheap. And Lucas's music lessons, his teacher wants the new semester's tuition by next week. Things are just really tight at home right now." I listened, my lips curving into a faint smile. She was circling carefully, but the target was obvious. Money. My voice came out serene. "Really? Then I guess it's time for you two to sit down and work out a proper budget." Silence. Chloe clearly didn't expect that response. She choked on her next words, her tone hardening. "No, Grace, you have a good retirement fund, right? Maybe just for now you could help us out a little. We're family after all. We should look out for each other." "Family." I repeated the word slowly, letting the irony hang in the air. "The day your parents moved in, who was it that kicked me out of the primary bedroom? Who stuffed my things into a storage room and said with a smile, 'The primary bedroom is better for the elderly'? Funny how no one mentioned, 'We're family' then. I wasn't going to dance around it anymore. I laid it all out, plain and simple. Chloe, my pension is the result of a lifetime of hard work and sacrifice. It is for me. Me alone. You two had the nerve to move your parents into my house behind my back, so you own that. You made the decision. You live with the consequences. But don't expect me to foot the bill." Before she could say another word, I hung up. I let out a long breath. To them, I wasn't a mother anymore. I was a bottomless ATM. Always accessible, always gracious, always expected to dispense with a smile. Well, this machine was officially out of service for everyone but me. And when sweet words failed, Chloe did what she did best. She changed tactics. She started pulling strings behind the scenes. A few days later, I received a string of phone calls, one after another, all from so-called relatives. First came Daniel's aunt, all sanctimonious and dramatic the moment I answered. "Grace, what's gotten into you? I heard you stormed out. What do you think you're doing, living alone at your age? Daniel and Chloe are doing their best. You're the mother. You should be more tolerant. Don't stoop to arguing with your daughter-in-law." Then came my niece, Anna. Her tone was softer, more cautious. "Aunt Grace, Daniel told me what happened. Chloe might have made some mistakes, but don't take it so hard, okay? Your family. Just talk things out. We're just worried about you living alone." Nice words. But the message was the same. I was being difficult, petty, maybe even selfish. At first, I felt a familiar tight knot in my chest. Then I started to laugh, quietly and bitterly. They had all been fed Chloe's version of the story. Not one of them asked what had actually happened. They didn't want the truth. They just wanted the mother to do what mothers are expected to do. Swallow her pride, let it go, and come crawling back. I didn't bother arguing. To the ones who seemed genuinely concerned, I simply said, "Thank you for asking. I'm fine. I just needed my own space." But for those who were clearly reading from Chloe's script, I didn't hold back. "She's having a hard time? You think I had it easy? She wanted to take care of her parents, fine, but she used my house to do it. She moved them into my room. And now she wants my money, too? If you think she's such a saint, go ahead and pay her bills. My money didn't fall from the sky. After a few more calls like that, the chorus of peacemakers started to fade. It seemed Chloe's little PR campaign had backfired. But the whole episode reminded me of something important. I could no longer afford to be reactive. Words have weight, especially when they're twisted and spoken behind your back. If Chloe decided to play dirty, she could easily poison more ears and rewrite the story until I looked like the villain. And I was not about to let that happen. I needed to move. Strategically, proactively. So I started preparing quietly, methodically, one piece at a time. First, I pulled out my old phone and went through months of text messages from Chloe. Message after message, the same theme repeated itself. Subtle complaints about my lack of generosity, gentle hints that I should pay for this or cover that. I took screenshots of every single one. I saved them in a folder, labeled them, filed them away. Then, I called an old neighbor from the block where my Berkeley house was. We chatted for a bit, and I asked casually, "It must be pretty lively at the house since I moved out, huh? Lot of action over there lately?" He didn't even hesitate. Lowering his voice to a neighborhood gossip whisper, he told me everything. Apparently, Chloe had a habit of complaining about me publicly, right out in front of the building, to anyone who would listen. "She's still holding on to that house," she'd say. "It's going to be ours sooner or later anyway." She seemed to forget the golden rule of nosy neighbors. Someone is always recording. It didn't take long for a few voice clips to land in my inbox. Her tone, her words, crystal clear. I also called an old friend, a retired family law attorney. She'd handled enough elder abuse and financial exploitation cases to know the landscape. I told her I wasn't planning on taking it to court, at least not yet. I just needed to understand my rights, my leverage. I needed clarity in my head and cards in my hand. If they came for me again, if they tried to slander me, I would be ready. I was not some naive old woman who had never seen the world. By the beginning of the second month, things started to unravel, just as I expected. Without their live-in housekeeper and 24-hour open bank account, Daniel and Chloe's carefully curated life began to fall apart. The bills piled up. I wasn't there to quietly pick up the slack anymore. Chloe kept spending as if nothing had changed: designer bags, spa appointments, private sessions with her personal trainer, and having her parents under the same roof. It wasn't the boon she imagined. The old couple was strict and set in their ways. They ate bland food, went to bed early, and had little tolerance for her lifestyle. Chloe liked to blast reality television late into the night. Her father would get up at dawn, stomping loudly down the hall. The tension mounted quickly. She started lashing out, complaining their food tasted like hospital food, rolling her eyes at their constant lectures about wastefulness, the bags, the Botox, the takeout. At first, she bit her tongue. Then she stopped pretending altogether. "Are they here to visit or just to drive me insane?" she snapped one night, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. She even started picking fights with Daniel, screaming that she was trapped in a psych ward and about to lose it. And Daniel? He was crumbling under the pressure. Until one night, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find my son looking like a ghost, dark circles under his eyes, hair matted, his shirt as wrinkled as a used napkin. I let him in. He collapsed onto the sofa like someone who hadn't sat down in days. His eyes were red. His voice trembled. "Mom, I can't take it anymore." He spilled everything: Chloe's temper, her impossible parents, the money problems, the stress, the insomnia. And finally, in a broken voice that almost shattered my heart, he pleaded, "Could you just come back? Just to help for a little while? Or maybe just lend us some money? Anything. We're falling apart." For a fleeting moment, something ancient stirred in me, a flicker of maternal instinct. He was still my son. I had raised him, loved him, believed in him. But that flicker didn't last. It was snuffed out by a deeper, colder pain. Disappointment. I poured him a glass of water and waited for him to drink it. Then I spoke, my voice low but firm. "Daniel, this is the life you chose. When your wife moved her parents into my house without asking, when she pushed me into the guest room as if I didn't matter if you had said one word, just one word to stop it, This wouldn't be happening now. You chose silence. You chose to give in. So now you can choose what to do with the consequences. I paused for a moment, letting my eyes rest on Daniel's frozen expression. Then I added, slowly but surely, as for the money, don't ever ask me again. Go home and tell your wife this. My money is for me and me alone. Don't expect another dime, not ever. Daniel's lips trembled, as if he wanted to argue, to plead, maybe to protest. But the words wouldn't come. He just sat there, head bowed, like a man who'd lost everything on a bad bet. I knew my words cut deep, but some things have to be said sharp, clear, and without apology. Compassion, in the wrong hands, is a disease, especially when it's given to people who see you as a bottomless well, who only come around to draw more from you, who see every act of kindness not as grace, but as an obligation. The more you give, the more they take, until there's nothing left of you but dust and silence. Daniel needed to wake up. I closed the door behind him and stood there for a while, my back against the wood, letting out a long, slow breath. Yes, my chest felt heavy, but beneath that weight was something else. Something firm, something fierce. Clarity and resolve. For the first time in a long time, I knew exactly what I had to do, not for them, but for me. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. Hello, Tom. It's Grace. About what we discussed last time? I've made up my mind. I want to move forward with revising the will. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear his hesitation, the careful pause of a man weighing his words. Are you sure, Grace? I know you've been on the fence. Daniel is your only son, after all. My answer was swift, clear, unwavering. I've made my decision. There are some people, and some mistakes, that are not worth waiting for. Tom didn't argue. His voice immediately shifted to a professional tone. He walked me through the legal steps of amending my will, the documents I needed to prepare, and the wording that would make it ironclad. After I hung up, I sat on my couch in the warm, quiet light of my Oakland apartment and stared around the room for a long time. Everything around me was simple, but it was mine, and what I owned was not nothing. 2 houses. One was this modest but well-located apartment in Oakland, worth over $300,000. The other was the house where Daniel and Chloe were now living, in Berkeley, a larger property, with a market value close to $750,000. Add to that nearly $100,000 in savings, plus annuities and long-term investment accounts, the life savings of my late husband and me. Never, for a moment, did I think any of this would go to anyone else. Daniel was my only child. Who else would I leave it to? But now, everything had changed. Daniel's weakness, Chloe's greed, their disregard for me. Little by little, they had eroded the foundation of love and trust I had built over my entire life. To leave them all of this? I could already imagine how they would squander it: new cars, designer bags, the latest phones, and a lifestyle that always needed more, more, more. I could even picture the two of them turning on each other, fighting over who got what, how to divide the money. And me? After they inherited everything, they probably wouldn't even bother to buy a headstone. I would not let that happen. Not after everything I had lived through. Not after everything I had earned. The next morning I called Tom again. I have one more decision, I said. I want to sell the house in Berkeley. The one they're in. By noon, we were meeting in his office. He slid the listing agreement in front of me. I read it carefully and signed, letter by letter, with no tremor and no regret. Legally, you have the full authority to sell that property, Tom said, tucking the papers into a folder. They have no claim. You are the sole owner, and I will personally oversee every step of the transaction to ensure they cannot interfere. I nodded slowly, and for the first time in a long time, I felt it. Relief. The kind that settles deep in your chest like a stone finally coming to rest. That afternoon, Tom and I drove to the Berkeley property and went straight to the property management office. I'm here to get the spare keys, I told the manager calmly, handing over my ID, a copy of the deed, and an official letter from Tom. And I'd like to remove Daniel Monroe and Chloe Monroe from the list of registered occupants. The manager looked over the documents, raising an eyebrow slightly. Do they know you're selling the house? I gave him a faint smile. They will, very soon. Telling them would have been a courtesy. Not telling them, that was my right. That evening, I contacted a reputable local real estate agency and listed the house at a fair market price. The agent they sent was a sharp, no-nonsense woman who worked fast. When she found out I was the sole owner with no mortgage or liens, she had the photos taken, the video tour shot, and the property listed within 48 hours. It was all handled with precision. This place won't stay on the market for more than a month, she said with a confident nod. I want it gone fast. No loose ends, I told her. She grinned. Owners like you are my favorite. On the 9th day after the listing went live, the first showing was scheduled. It was a bright Saturday afternoon. The agent arrived with a young couple, eager first-time buyers, and they walked into the house I once poured my heart into. Chloe was home that day. At first, she just hovered near the hallway, watching with narrowed eyes. She probably assumed they were friends of the neighbors, just visiting. Until the agent raised her voice slightly in the kitchen, speaking in a cheerful tone. This property is in a prime location, no liens, owned outright, and the seller is motivated. It's an ideal starter home for a young family. Chloe's face fell. Who are you people? Who gave you permission to be here? She barked, rushing into the room and planting herself right in the middle of it. The agent, momentarily taken aback, recovered quickly. She produced the signed authorization letter and replied calmly, We are here on behalf of Mrs. Grace Monroe. She is the sole registered owner of this property. We have keys, and management has verified access. Chloe's voice went shrill. What the hell are you talking about? We live here. The couple looked stunned. The woman leaned into the agent and whispered, Is everything okay? But the agent was a seasoned pro, firm and steady. Everything is fine. The title is clean. There's no lease or tenant holdover. This is a standard showing. Chloe's complexion shifted like a storm pale, then flushed, then green with rage. She whipped out her phone and started dialing furiously, no doubt calling Daniel. Meanwhile, curious neighbors began to peer out from their balconies and doorways. The news had spread like wildfire in that community, and now the rumors were being confirmed. Is Grace really selling the house? The next afternoon, the call came from Daniel. His voice was tight with panic. Mom, is this some kind of misunderstanding? Are you seriously selling the house? There is no misunderstanding, I replied, my voice light as air. But we're still living here. You can't just at least think it over? What about Lucas? Your grandson is growing up here. You said it yourselves it was temporary, I said calmly. So stay until closing, and be out. I'm already in the second round of negotiations. You should start looking. There was a long silence. Then he mumbled, barely a whisper, Chloe's losing her mind. I didn't respond. He should have lost his a year ago. Not now. In the third week, the agent called. Grace, she said, we have a solid offer. Full asking, cash buyer, ready to close fast. Do you want to take it? Yes, I said, without a moment's hesitation. The day the buyer came to sign, Chloe finally lost it. She was waiting at the neighborhood entrance, blocking the real estate agent and the young couple with tears streaming down her cheeks and panic in her voice. We've lived here for so long. How could you sell the house from under us? She even called the police, screaming about a malicious eviction. The officers showed up, checked the deed, and one of them gave a dry, emotionless response. This is private property. The registered owner has the legal right to sell. You are not tenants. You are not on the title. You will have to vacate. That's when her face finally crumbled. Daniel showed up shortly after, trying to pull her away. She shoved him and screamed, Where have you been this whole time? Your mother is throwing us out. I didn't show up. I had Tom deliver the official notice. It was short and to the point. This property has been sold. All non-titled occupants are required to vacate within 2 weeks. Failure to do so will result in legal action for a forcible eviction. This wasn't revenge. It was a consequence. They had pushed me out of the primary bedroom and into a corner. I was simply showing them the door. Chloe's drama had run for far too long. It was time for her to exit the stage. A week before closing, She still wasn't giving up. She showed up at my door with Daniel. It was a crisp, bright morning. When I opened the door, I found them there at the bottom of my steps. Daniel, looking haggard, Chloe hiding behind huge sunglasses, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Mom, can we talk?" Daniel asked softly, like a child waiting to be scolded. I didn't invite them in. I stood in the doorway, my hand gripping the knob like a boundary I wouldn't let them cross. Chloe took off hair sunglasses, revealing red, swollen eyes. Her voice was tight and brittle. "Grace, we really have nowhere to go. We were wrong, okay? Just think about Lucas. He's used to this house. At least let him stay. We'll move out. Just let the boy stay where he feels safe." Her tone was pleading, her face the very picture of regret. She even managed to squeeze 2 fat tears down her cheeks, as if she were finally ready to repent. Maybe, months ago, that would have worked on me. Not anymore. "You're both adults," I said serenely. "Don't tell me you can't find a rental. This isn't about Lucas needing a home. This is about you not wanting to face the consequences." Chloe bit her lip, hard. The cracks in her performance were starting to show. "So you're really going to be this heartless?" she hissed. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice like glass. "Heartless?" I repeated. "Was it heartless when you moved your parents into my house and shoved me into the guest room without a word?" She said nothing. She just turned, silently, to Daniel. He swallowed hard. His voice was barely audible. "Mom, you used to say you just wanted us to be happy, to be together." I nodded. I did. "But right now, your together doesn't include me. What you're looking for isn't a mother, it's a backup plan, a housekeeper, an emergency fund, and I'm done playing those parts." I reached to my side and pulled out a sealed envelope. "This is the formal letter from Tom. The property sale is finalized. The title now belongs to the new owners. You have 5 days to vacate the property. Otherwise, the buyers will file for a forcible eviction." Daniel took the envelope and just stood there, stunned, as if he'd just been handed a verdict. Chloe's mask fell completely. "You're so cruel," she shrieked. "You just wait. When you're old and sick and all alone, we'll see who's there for you." I looked at her, calm and serene. I'd rather grow old alone than in a house full of family who treat me like an ATM until there's nothing left. I paused, then added one last note. "Don't worry, I won't need you. I've already made all my retirement plans." Chloe said nothing more. She just turned and slammed her car door, so hard the windows rattled. The engine roared to life, tires screeching like an angry child throwing a tantrum. Daniel got in the passenger seat. He didn't even look back. After that day, I received no more calls from Daniel. No more concerned but really scheming voicemails from Chloe. Just a short message from my real estate agent. "They've started packing, but it's clear they have nowhere to go. They're asking if you would consider postponing the handover." I replied with 2 words. "Absolutely not." On Friday morning, I got a call from the buyer's lawyer, confirming the moving company would arrive the next day. "If they do not vacate," he said flatly, "we will begin formal forcible detainer proceedings." I hung up and sat by my window for a while, watching the old sycamore tree sway gently in the wind. That tree had seen many seasons come and go. Now it was witnessing my final cleansing. By noon the next day, the neighborhood group chat lit up. Daniel's wife is outside yelling at the movers. "Oh my God, Grace finally sold the house. I told you, nobody just gives a house away like that." One neighbor even filmed a short clip and sent it to me. There was Chloe, stomping around on the curb in completely inappropriate heels, screaming at the movers. "Be careful with that box. It has my skincare." "Don't touch that wardrobe." I said, "Don't touch it." Daniel was sitting, hunched against the wall, on the phone, looking pale and defeated, surrounded by half-packed boxes and scattered clothes. Lucas stood silently with a small dog in his lap, watching it all without a word. As for Chloe's parents, the same ones who had once settled so smugly into my primary bedroom, they were now huddled in the hallway, trying to tape up some old chairs. Their faces were tight, anxious. No one was helping them, because no one owed them anything. The word was they'd found a cramped, overpriced apartment without an elevator on the outskirts of town, no elevator and barely enough room to lie down. Their suburban exile. Lucas's extracurricular activities had to be canceled. After defaulting on their mortgage earlier in the month, they were already living on credit cards. Chloe and Daniel were fighting more and more. First, she blamed him for not stopping his mother. Then came the guilt. My parents did all this for us. And finally, the real venom. You said that house would eventually be ours. Daniel said nothing. Because when you know the truth but choose to ignore it again and again, there will come a day when your cowardice demands payment. Once it was all settled, I went to the lake by myself. The sun was warm. The breeze was gentle. A few ducks glided across the water as if nothing had happened. I sat on a bench, my fingers wrapped around a cup of hot coffee, my other hand resting on the edge of my scarf, an old one, a gift from my late husband, worn, but still warm. I never truly believed I could see all of this through, not because I didn't have the means, but because I never thought I'd find the strength. But once your heart hardens, you realize just how much you've been carrying, just to maintain a peace that wasn't even yours to begin with. Selling that house didn't give me peace. It gave me freedom. Tom had already helped me set up an ironclad trust, securing my living expenses, medical care, and long-term care. I even included a donation clause. A portion of my estate would go to a legal aid foundation for women in California each year, specifically to support those who are denied control of their own finances in marriage and family. I'm not here to rescue Daniel, and I won't waste my time trying to punish Chloe. I am here now to support the women who truly need it. Life in the community got better. I joined a few local activity groups. I made a friend, Lillian, another widow with a rescue cat named Daisy. We walk together often, and she always says, "I like the way you walk, like you've still got somewhere important to go." And I do. I've started traveling nothing extravagant, just train trips to small coastal towns. I bring my sketchbook, a paper umbrella, take pictures, and then buy myself a slice of cheesecake on the way home as a treat. I have never lived so simply, and never so fully. As for them, I haven't reached out. Sometimes Daniel sends a text. "Mom, we've moved. Lucas keeps asking when you'll come see him." And I reply, "I'll come visit him. I miss him too, because I do still love my son. I still love my grandson. But we don't share the same life anymore. And that's okay. My world is quiet now, finally. Undeniably mine." That evening, I sat on the sofa and opened an old photo album. One picture caught my eye, a younger me, holding a newborn Daniel, smiling with a kind of pure, radiant hope. I smiled back at her. I gently tapped the page and whispered, "You did the best you could. It's okay to let go now." I pulled the blanket over my shoulders as the sunset spilled through the windows like a painting, and I thought, true happiness isn't about how many people sit beside you. It's when you finally stop shrinking yourself to keep the wrong ones close.